What's up, design family, and welcome back to another episode of Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you back on the channel. On today's episode, we'll be looking at the key philosophies of selecting a strong brand and company name. We'll look at the 3 key naming types that you'll need to consider when going into business and fashion, and we'll outline some things to consider as well as some things to avoid. Also, for those of you who are interested in using your own names for your fashion label, we'll look at the pros and the cons of this. Selecting a strong name can be a tedious process and one that is extremely confusing on where to start. But it cannot be overstated enough in terms of its importance. Selecting a strong brand name can kickstart your growth and give you the momentum you need to achieve what you need to achieve. If you guys have ever been confused or just interested on where to start selecting your brand name, this is the video for you. Hey guys, and welcome to Fittdesign TV. So glad to have you here. On this channel, we discuss all things sports fashion, graphic design, manufacturing, and technology. We'll discuss key topics, answer pressing questions, and provide actionable steps on starting your own product line. If you're interested in any of the above topics, stick around. You're in for a good one. As the saying goes, it's all in the brand name. Creating a strong and memorable brand name is one way to create an instant connection with your customers that allows you to stay fresh and relevant in their minds. One thing to note is that your brand and your logo are essential to creating a brand image. And this is the key starter piece by which you can push forth that brand vision that you have that will ultimately allow you to stand out from the competition and to push what is unique and special about your brand. It may come as a surprise that in order to create a strong brand name, you must first actually consider 3 names that formulate your overall branding and identity. Number 1 is your original brand name. This is the client-facing side of your business. So your brand name is a label or a identifier of your business. It allows people to find you and it helps distinguish you from other brands. Number 2 is your legal name, or what is known as a trade name. This is especially important if your business is incorporated as an LLC or as a business entity. This is your business-facing side of your brand. So this will go on any other documentation such as company contracts and invoices. And lastly, it's no surprise that in the 21st century, you need to be able to be easily findable. So by having a strong domain name, aka your website name, that relates closely to your brand, once people hear about your brand, they can easily find you online and engage with your brand. There is no use in doing all of this marketing and creating all of this great content if people can't easily find your domain name or even now your social media handles. All of those things should be related and they should tie in closely with one another. When considering a brand name, there are 4 key things you'll need to address. And number 1, your brand name is an important visible attribute of the brand. It will appear in all of your marketing, product, and packaging materials. So make sure it's instantly recognizable and quite distinguishable from your competitors. Number 2 is, along with your logo, this will be the first thing that your customers experience. So by having something unique and eye-catching, it will resonate for longer and allow them to distinguish you from other competitors. Number 3, it's always important to triple check if your name is being used in a similar industry by a competitor. This can help you avoid tedious and expensive legal battles down the road. And then lastly, on that note, if you're going into business, make sure to trademark your name in order to prevent others from using it. And we've actually done a video on protecting your intellectual property specifically for fashion designers that I highly recommend you check out. Just as we've discussed things to consider, now let's look at some things to avoid when formulating a brand name. And number 1 is obviously don't adopt a brand name that is scandalous, immoral, deceptive, or misleading. There's no use in trying to go for all publicity is good publicity when it could potentially lead your customers down the wrong path or give your customers a wrong first impression of you. Your brand name is the first thing that they'll see. Get off on the right foot with them. Number 2, avoid words that are heavily reliant on pop culture or day-to-day slang. One thing that you'll want to think about when creating a brand name is longevity. There's no use in creating a key name that may be relevant today but will become outdated in a couple of months. Number 3, if you're using the name of someone, make sure to obtain written permission. This is just common courtesy and it can help you avoid issues down the line. Number 4, in the spirit of being unique, try to avoid using long names, names with weird wording, or names that are tough to pronounce. It's not unique and ultimately it makes you tougher to find and just adds an extra layer of friction to your potential customers. Last but not least, if you plan on expanding into foreign markets, it's probably a good idea to check whether the name of your brand means what you think it means in those markets. The last thing you'll want to do is expand into what is potentially your second biggest market and find out that your name means something totally inappropriate and end up being boycotted. So that's not a good position to be in. Now that we've considered the things to consider and the things to avoid when coming up with your brand name, let's look at a specific scenario where you want to use your own name for your brand name. Well, what are the pros and cons of this? When it comes to the pros is obviously your name is unique. If you have a unique name, people will remember your brand and it will allow you to stand apart from other brands. So this will make you easily distinguishable. Number 2, it allows you to grow your reputation. The success of your brand name will be directly linked to your own personal development and your success. So even if you change careers down the line, the success that your brand garners can actually begin and continue to push you forward. Number 3 is it also connects to personal successes. People can relate to stories. So people can relate to your brand even more easily if you or your business gains popularity over time. People will be able to closely relate to that development. When it comes to the cons, just as a unique name can make you easily distinguishable, a name that is too long, hard to spell, pronounce, or even a name that's too ordinary can make it hard for your customers to find you. If you have a name that's a dime a dozen, how are people going to find you and how are you going to stand out in a crowded namespace? At the same time, it makes it personal. So what does that mean? Well, when it comes to your business's failure, this will be directly linked to you. So your business's failure, regardless of if it's your own or not, will be directly linked to you. And if your brand gets any negative press, this will be tied back to you. So that's not a positive. And then lastly, you'll need to understand that you risk losing control, especially if you incorporate it. So what does that mean? If you trademark your name, which you should do if you're using it as a brand name, down the line, you may not be able to use that name as your personal branding name, so for your own use. Why is that? Well, because the company or the entity owns the trademark, if your business changes hands down the line, you will no longer own the trademark for your own name, so you won't be able to even use your own name for your personal projects. Before we conclude this episode, I'll give you guys 4 quick tips on coming up with a brand name. As we discussed, you can opt for a namesake brand that uses your own unique name as the generator. Number 2, you can also seek help from an online name generator that puts a bunch of words together that can help get the creative ball rolling for you when it comes to coming up with a unique name. Number 3 is it's also highly recommended that you list keywords that instantly pop into your head when you think about your brand and start creating mixes and combinations of those words. And then lastly, if your budget allows for it, consider hiring an expert or an agency to help you come up with a unique name that stands for a strong and unique brand direction. That concludes the process of coming up with a strong brand and company name. If you guys enjoyed this video and feel like you have a better grasp on creating a unique company name, let us know in the comments below and let us know what other fashion business related videos you want to see next. Thank you guys so much for tuning in to Fittdesign TV. Until next episode, stay awesome.